Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Friday. We are at the end of another working week, the weekend just around the corner. Arsenal versus Brighton on Sunday, Manchester City at Everton just before that. What a big day in the Premier League, at the top of the Premier League. It is going to be on Sunday afternoon. Mikel Arteta will be speaking ahead of that game at London Colney a little bit later on today, or by the time you're watching this video, he may well have already spoken. And we'll be, I'm sure, previewing the match and giving all the very latest when it comes to team news and injuries. And we've got some bad news to discuss this morning when it does come to injuries. I'm sure you've seen it by now. David Ornstein reporting last night the not unexpected news that William Saliba won't play again this season. I think we were all expecting that was going to be the case. But David also reporting that Oleksandr Zinchenko has picked up a calf problem in the second half against Newcastle, and he will also miss the remainder of the season. Now, of course, there's only 3 games to go, so in a way that's not a huge blow, but it is still, it's disruptive for Arsenal. Zinchenko, although he's not been in the best of form the last few weeks, he's still a very, very important player and still integral to the way Mikel Arteta sets his team up. And in a game, especially I think against Brighton as well, when it's going to be so much battle for control in that midfield area, because you've got two teams who love to keep the ball and to move it, I think Zinchenko would definitely have started. So it is a blow. We'll start, first of all, just on Saliba though. As I said, it's not wholly unexpected. I think we all thought this was probably going to be the case as the game has ticked by, as the weeks ticked by when he didn't come back, and when Mikel was always sort of saying in his press conferences that nothing had really changed, he'd made no progress. It started to fail. Once the Man City game was out the way and he hadn't made it back for that, you just thought it's not going to happen. He's not going to play, and that's obviously now been confirmed, and we'll see what Mikel says during the press conference in terms of the extent of the injury. I think the worry with Saliba is we just don't really know what's going on with Saliba. It's not like a normal injury where, even if it's a ligament injury in your knee or your ankle, it's always like 3 months, something like that. You know a time frame, but we're just not really sure. And whenever we talk to Mikel and ask him to try and get more out of him, he doesn't really open up too much on what this back injury actually is and how it can be fixed. Is he going to have an operation? David says no. In that report he put out last night about the two of them, said that neither of them need to have an operation. So that's good news, you would think, but is it just purely a time thing then with Saliba? I think that's it. It's just a little bit of uncertainty, isn't it, about the complete extent of the injury and how he gets better. And I think for Arsenal now, the key thing is just making sure he is better for pre-season. I think certainly once the City game, when, like I said, it just felt like that was the time just to be like, okay, we tried, it hasn't worked, he's not getting better, now let's just make sure he's fine for the summer, because that's the most important thing. You don't want this to suddenly start dragging into next season when it comes to Saliba. You want to make sure whatever this issue is, it is done, dusted, and he's fully fit for pre-season, because it's not just about getting fit for the start of the season. You want them back for the start of pre-season, because it just makes such a difference if your players are all fit and ready to go, and no one's catching up on fitness or having their pre-season late or anything like that. You want them to be fully fit and ready for the very first day that they come back from their holidays, and that's going to be really crucial, I think, with William Saliba. It's a shame the way the season has finished for him, because he was so influential. He had such a dream debut season for Arsenal and in England, and you just wanted him to see it through, and the fact he's going to end up missing the last 11 games is just a real blow. And it's had such a massive impact on Arsenal's end to the season as well. There's no doubt about that, and it's a real shame. And obviously it's football, it happens, but for it to happen to him especially, I think it was a huge blow for Arsenal. And hopefully they're going to be able to get through these next 3 games. You're going to have Kivior and Gabriel playing next to each other. They've done well since they've been paired together by Mikel Arteta, and hopefully that will continue. And they can help Arsenal get over the line, and William Saliba can come out on the pitch at the end of the season, get his hands on the Premier League trophy. A lot has to happen for that to take place, but yeah, it is a shame. It is a big shame. And Zinchenko, I think there's. I was reading Arsblog's column today, and he said it right. He made a good point. He said there's almost a little bit of recency bias when you look at it, because he hasn't played great the last few games. There's no doubt about it. He's been a little bit suspect defensively. But that can't take away for how important he's been for Arsenal and how transformational he's been to Arsenal this season when he's played. He has been an excellent signing, a really top player. and been very, very important to this team. Just because he's had a few games recently shouldn't take away from that. Now, I've seen people say, oh, it doesn't matter, Tierney come in, that's great, we want Tierney in. But you only have to go back a few weeks when Zinchenko was suddenly missing for the West Ham game and Tierney came in and Arsenal ended up drawing that game. All the talk afterwards was everyone saying, oh, Arsenal missed Zinchenko massively. Tierney completely changes how Arsenal's set up. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to recency bias. Everything changes. Tierney came on against Newcastle, played very well, and suddenly Tierney should be playing and Zinchenko shouldn't. It's just people sort of change their opinions very, very quickly, match by match. But I do think that Zinchenko's had a really good season. It's been a really excellent sign and he's made a big, big difference. Not having him is going to be a blow and it is going to completely change how Arsenal need to set up over those 3 games. If, you'd expect Kieran Tierney's going to come in and start, but then it's like, what do you do? What does Arteta do? Does he change his system to sort of counter for the fact that Tierney's now playing left back, or do you just ask Tierney to do what you asked Zinchenko to do? I don't think you can do that. I think he's going to have to tweak it a little bit. If you got Tierney in the team, for me, you don't play him as an inverted fullback. You don't play him. He's not Zinchenko. He cannot play that role very well. We've seen it this season, and Arsenal struggle as a result when he tries to do that. When you got Tierney in the team, for me, and obviously I'm not the coach, but for me, you just surely play to his strengths. You get him down that left-hand side, bombing forward, playing like the traditional fullback that he is, and then you sort of cover for the absence of Zinchenko. Somehow you tweak things a little bit. If it's Granit Xhaka has to stay a little bit deeper, so be it, and he can fill in and be that sort of ball-playing player from the sort of left-hand side of the central areas. I think that, look, I'm not a coach. I don't know how it works, but Mikel Arteta and his staff, you would expect, can come up with a way of coping without Zinchenko, without asking Tierney to play that role. Because I hate it whenever I see Tierney trying to do that. You just think, what's the point? He can't play it very well. He tries, as he always does, but you just want Tierney getting on the overlap, bombing down the left-hand side and doing what he can do well. And he did that when he came on against Newcastle. He played like Kieran Tierney should, and he played very, very well. And I'm hoping that's what we see from Mikel, that he comes up with some sort of plan to counter for the absence of Zinchenko just by allowing Tierney to play to his strengths, and he works something else out around the rest of the team to cover for Zinchenko. But let me know what you guys think. First of all, by the injuries, how big of a blow is it? And then what you think Mikel should do for this Brighton game and the final 2 games after that. Do you want to see a tweak in system, or do you want to see Tierney just play like Zinchenko? I can't imagine you would want to see that, but let me know in the comments below. Elsewhere, the FWA, the Football Writers Association, have announced their Footballer of the Year after balloting all the football writers. And no surprise who the winner is. Erling Haaland, 72% of the votes he got, which is no surprise. It was at Arsenal second and third. Bukayo Saka was second. Martin Odegaard was third. But Haaland, the clear winner, like I said, was 72% of the votes. You just can't ignore his numbers. I think when you look at it, who's been a better footballer this season, for me, I don't think there's really been a better footballer in this league than Martin Odegaard, for me, when it comes to pure footballing ability and what he's done for the team and playing. But when it comes to goal scoring, what Haaland's done is just absolutely ridiculous. When you look at him as well, he's such a good player. You kind of gloss over it a little bit when you watch him on TV and you see what he does week in, week out. It's just like, there he is at the end of those moves for Manchester City, finishing the goals off. I'd score 30 goals if I was playing in that Manchester City team. But when you actually see him live, the 2 times I've seen him this season at the Emirates and at the Etihad, he's just an absolute monster of a player. The strength, the pace, the directness, the problems he causes, link-up play is good. He's just everyone calls him a machine, a robot, and he honestly is like that. He just doesn't look human. You can't be that big and be that fast. You can't be that mobile, but he is. He's just got absolutely everything about him. He's taken the striker role to a whole new level, really, in terms of what he can do. And he's just a freak of nature, just an absolutely remarkable player, and his numbers speak for himself. And while I'd love to see Saka or Odegaard win the Footballer of the Year's awards, I just don't see how you can overlook Haaland. this season for what he's done and the numbers that he's done. And when you sort of counter in the fact it's his first season as England as well, there's been no need to adjust, nothing like that. He's just come in, hit the ground running and just ripped up every single record book pretty much that there is just truly remarkable. And I think he's an absolutely deserving winner for the Footballer of the Year awards. But well done to Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard as well, because their efforts should not be diminished by that. Second and third, that is a very good reward for impressive seasons that they have had. Thomas Partey has been speaking ahead of the game against Brighton. He spoke a lot about the sort of difficulties Arsenal are going to face against Brighton and how they've been working during the week to try and ensure they can how do I describe it? Ensure they can sort of counter the threat that Brighton possess and get on top of them. He didn't give away any secrets. He said you'll have to wait and see after the match how we deal with them, but he fully expects a really difficult game against Brighton, and it will be a difficult game. I think Brighton are such a fantastic side that obviously there was a freak result last weekend against Everton. How they react to that's going to be really intriguing. Obviously De Zerbi after the game saying that you'll definitely see the real Brighton against Arsenal, and you would think they're going to have to want to put a big response into that, because that would have been an embarrassing result and they would have really felt that after last weekend against Everton. But Thomas Partey's also been speaking about the fact he's been dropped recently and losing his place in the side to Jorginho for the games against Chelsea and against Newcastle. This is what he had to say. The competition is very good, as any time you don't do well, someone can take your place. It pushes every player to the top. So I think you have more chance of getting the best out of every player with rotation. I believe it's part of the game. We have to stick together and put our minds on one objective. In football, you have always to be ready to be at the top, and I think the mentality of this squad is that we have to try and finish as high as possible. We have to get better and push ourselves to get the best out of each other so that we make the team stronger and keep fighting everything we want. And he's right. I think it does push you, competition. That's why you want the best possible squad, because that competition for places is so important. I think with Thomas Partey, he is known for an awful long time now that if he's fit, he plays. It's plain and simple. To be honest, if he's not fit, he plays. We've seen that over the last few years because he's that important. But the fact now that they do have Jorginho, the fact they went out and they signed him from Chelsea and they gave Arsenal another option is good, and it's paid off recently, because Partey hasn't been in good form, clearly struggling with something, whether it's injury or just a loss of form, loss of confidence. He's not the player that we used to seeing. Really struggled in some of the games leading up to being dropped. And Jorginho came in. I thought he deserved to come in, and he seized his opportunity. He was very good against Chelsea, and he was absolutely excellent against Newcastle last weekend. And I fully expect now, as long as he's fit, that Jorginho will start every game between now and the end of the season, and Thomas Partey is going to have to just accept that, and he'll certainly come on like he did against Newcastle, and he can play a big part over the next few games, but he's going to have to watch, certainly for the start of matches, from the substitutes bench, and that shows the improvement of the squad, which is good, and it's what you want. And fair play to Mikel Arteta for making that change. To be honest, I thought he probably could have made it earlier, but fair play to making that change, and Jorginho's come in and absolutely proven his worth, and hopefully Thomas Partey that sort of kicks him into gear, and he can make a big impact when he does come off the substitutes bench in the next few weeks. Alright, so Mikel's going to be speaking a little bit later on at London Carnival. We'll get the very latest from him on Saliba, on Zinchenko, on anything else that's been going on. It'll be interesting to see exactly what he says. Normally he keeps his cards very close to his chest, but the fact that these reports are out there now, you'd think he would have to respond to them and give a very latest update. Also see what he says about Aaron Ramsdale's new contract, which we expect to be signed soon. Bukayo Saka's new contract, is that going to be announced soon? We'll see what he has to say. But until then, have a very good day, everyone. Anything you've agreed with, disagreed with, anything you want to ask or opinion-wise for Arsenal, just hit it up in the comments below. Have a very good start to the weekend, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.